we'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. So the first order will be we got to make Joe Conway co-host. I'm learning Joe as we go in the order of operations here. Okay. Oh, there's Dan. So we have our minutes from our March 6th meeting. So we want to take a minute to read them through. And just seeing how many points we have. 8. I'll try to keep them all on the screen. And then if someone can make a motion to approve if they look good.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of March.
I second.
Okay. So Sam?
Aye. Sorry.
Shane?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Actually, well, you weren't there. I think you're supposed to abstain, but it's okay. It's not a matter of national security here, I don't think. Dan?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. And Garrett is sick, so he is not joining us tonight. Okay. Thank you.
What is the
Okay. So Joe sent us the updated list after our meeting. I forwarded that along. I believe Joe just communicated that the senior center wants to add another ask, but so Joe, I would ask that she come Thursday. The next Monday, I need to be our final meeting, and we have FinCom coming. So if she can either send it, and not if she can't make it, we'll just review it without her, or she can try to make it for Thursday, please.
I will relay.
Okay. I'll start with old business. So last meeting, I just sent it out. We had we were talking about the Civic Center table request, and I asked Dan McGrath to send some information regarding that. So again, there was an email. I just sent it. I can share it on the screen, but effectively he's saying the tables they have are in really rough shape. They're critical to the operation of the Civic Center, and the reason reason WB Mason is because that's who Town of Wakefield uses for office supplies. Can everyone see this email okay?
Yep.
Capital request. Okay. So I just sent this, so I'm not expecting that everyone read it. So I'm pulling it up and I can pull up some of the tables, but if you look in that email, there's like 4 pictures of the old wood round tables that have been being used. Again, some with splinters, some have metal trim. They don't stay locked, so they're quite heavy. So effectively, they just saying it's time to replace them. So,
Phil? Hey, Phil?
yes. Oh, hey, what's up, Frank?
Hey, I can speak as a hands-on person that actually deals with the tables for both the town and for fundraisers. They should have been replaced 10 years ago. The metal bands around them are falling off, and within the last 2 years, the functions that I've done for the hockey and for the schools, we lose like a table every time they fall apart. It's just like picture just an old piece of 3/4 inch plywood with legs, metal legs, and a metal band around it, basically so that it doesn't wear out when you're rolling it onto the floor. So there's no question that they need to be replaced, and it is used. They are used by a lot of groups in the town. I would think that somebody else on the committee would have been touched by something that they do at the Civic Center or 911 Albion.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the pricing, if you think it's to it, they need to be heavy duty and heavy quality. you can't just go get the cheapest round tables. Yeah, they do seat 10 people every time, and they do take a beating going up and down and out on the floor and into storage. So that's my 2 cents.
Will they be made of the same material?
They're not wood. No, I was going to bring up the, hold on, Frank. I'm just trying to, give me 1 second. I was going to pull up the screenshot. So this is what he had sent originally, in terms of round table, 5 foot, 880 pound static load capacity. No, so it's not made out of solid wood and metal like the old ones.
Okay.
You do have powder coated legs, but it seems like it's obviously not an old wooden table. So, so I wanted to share that info, and then the other follow up was I was going to try to collect more info regarding the Yule School.
Yeah.
So I did get my hands on the lease between the SEAM Collaborative and the Town of Wakefield School Committee and Town Council. So it was a lease signed in 2017. That lease specifically does state that the town is responsible for any structural, mechanical repairs. And then general cleaning and operations like trash and all that was responsible for the tenant. So the lease did confirm that capital requests. I wasn't able to gather any info, and it might be because there isn't any to share, or I don't know why. I don't have any info related to whether or not the town's been talking about its future use. So I'm going to assume that the plan of keeping Seam Collaborative is currently the plan. It doesn't seem like there's any discussions, because that was one of the questions, was if there was any active discussions about changing the use before we pump money into it. So it doesn't seem to be the case, but I don't know that definitively. But there was nothing.
What is
Nothing
the
thrown
term
at
of the
me
lease?
that would show. So it's a yearly lease that just self-renews, and so it's an annual lease. So those are the 2 things I just wanted to follow up on since the last meeting. Joe, you had a bit of homework, I think, related to the Maple Way request. Were you able to collect any more information from the administrator's office?
Some of it. So there's a lot of what we talked about last time. Dennis Fazio, who works in my group, reached out to softball, but he was kind of generally aware of this because we had visited it one time before. So he had some numbers and he was trying to get some other pricing to see, like, what does even putting an outfield fence up there cost you at like an order of magnitude?
Yep.
So pretty similar to what we thought last time. So you're looking around $39,000 to do the outfield fence. And then in his opinion, depending on whether or not they were looking for 2 batting cages or they wanted to go with bleachers, you'd probably be right in around 50. If you were going to do the field in the back, he was out wheeling it off the other day to get some estimates for, like new clay and things like that. But in all honesty, you're probably talking about a couple $100,000 to do something like that. So
Yeah.
I think what it'll probably end up boiling down to is, the dressing up the front field, getting an outfield fence on it, a bleacher, some sort of pitching warm up for, the girls down there. And then that's probably going to be about it, unless the town commits to something a little bit more substantial and we end up doing more of a holistic project in the back. But I don't think, for the amount of funding that was tossed out there, at least originally, you're probably not going to get everything on that plan from that presentation that was included.
Yeah, because it's marked as bathroom upgrade, but doesn't sound, you didn't mention that at all. So I'm going to guess that this request really is not a bathroom upgrade in any way.
No, that was mentioned in the beginning, but I've only been in that bathroom a couple of times. I don't think it's in as bad a shape as would need something that wouldn't be, picked up or in the course of like ordinary business through DPW. So I don't think you need to pump a ton of capital type dollars into that right now. I think that's something that needs to get replaced. We would just pick it up.
Okay. And any info about whether the softball association was going to have any funds to put towards any of this, or this is they're seeking the funding solely through the capital planning? I think that was one of the
That I don't
questions.
know.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for that. I was hoping to get like 20 minutes with him.
Yeah.
I saw Dennis briefly. I don't know how successful he was with that, being able to lock that down. But we were trying to
Okay.
shoot for that this week.
Okay. So outfield fence, some batting cages would probably cover just about what they were asking, the 100,000, what they were asking. So, yeah. Okay. I think that was it in terms of follow-up we talked about at the last meeting. So why don't we get into the list? Joe, you should be able to share. Tonight's meeting, while he's putting that up, tonight's meeting and Thursday night would be where we'd be looking to really get to a final place. Come Monday's meeting, if there's one or two things that we're really on the fence and we're close, I think we could use it towards that. Invited FinCom. Joe Bertrand from FinCom is going to be able to attend. Maureen from Town Council will be on at Monday's meeting. I still don't have word if Monday meeting is going to be hybrid in person Zoom or not. So I'll follow up with Sherry tomorrow and ask if a room's opened up. But the goal would be to take our final vote next Monday, to allow enough time to get a presentation together and presented to get put on the town council's agenda for the following week. So I know we're holding the 18th, but our goal really, as we've been talking about, should be a final vote for next Monday. So tonight and Thursday are really to grind down and try to get to a list here with our budget. So with that said, could you zoom in a little bit,
Sure. You tell
or
me
maybe
when.
a little more than a little bit? Because there we go. Thanks.
Is that enough?
It's good for me. Is that good for can people see that okay?
Yep.
Mhm. So there'll be a couple changes in this from my end. Everything else will go the same. So I can just call out the few that have moved, or you can run through it. I don't want to hijack your flow.
Why don't you start at the top? Let's run through it from top to bottom at this point. We don't need to do leases, but why don't we start at Fleet and get to the bottom and see where we're at?
Okay. So the last time we were in, we had the top two here, some of DPW's bigger stuff. We looked into leasing that. We got new numbers on those. This piece right here, 31. I actually don't think it needs to be highlighted anymore because we're deferring it off to another year. Let's see, 7 stayed the same. This one here, 89, this morning, after a ride to the dealer and about an hour of conversations, we were able to get a better price on this one. So that's live, that's updated. The next few vehicles are all the same as last time. We had the command car for the fire department, and then the 3 cruisers as the police chief presented down at the bottom. That kind of rounds out most of your fleet stuff right there.
I know we have police as green, and I don't want to get in the habit of reversing previous discussions, because then we'll never get anywhere. But that there was a comment, I think, at the last meeting about whether or not we have to revisit the fleet requests. I'm wondering, do we make that yellow for the purposes, or are we okay keeping it green no matter what?
I mean, I'm thinking we leave it green for now, and I guess see how tough tonight is.
Okay.
I'm just one person. I'm open to whatever anybody else thinks, but
So green means that we are pretty much settled it.
Green at the time meant that we were okay with the request, correct?
Okay.
So,
I think at this point everything is kind of yellow, but
right.
I think I think everything's kind of yellow, and I think we were trying to decide between
Okay.
yes, in the door seems all right versus no, we should reject this flat out.
Like green is a higher level of we're probably going to accept it, but not necessarily accepting it, right?
I like, yeah,
Well,
A higher level of yellow.
yeah, right.
Okay, I just wanted to
In
ask.
other
That's
words,
fine.
in other words, it's not sacrosanct at this point.
Until we vote, nothing solid. We can change our mind. Exactly. Nothing,
Yep.
and just, I just didn't want to revisit things. If people felt like, no, 100%, like this is it, then we don't need to keep on discussing, just for the sake of the number of items. But I see that as a discussion item, still, as Sam said. So, okay. Any other comments on fleet? Before we move on, you have quite a few vehicles, Joe. So looking out to next year, like what percentage, like how many vehicles do you have? And like like this seems like a lot, but maybe this is like 5% of your total fleet. Like what do you have like a 3 year or 5 year outlook on vehicles that we can, if we do defer, that we're not adding that to like 10 vehicles next year that have already been deferred? Like how do we start seeing the waterfall effect of deferring in what's coming up to know how desperate these requests are on your side?
Really, the only one that's desperate in it, I think I was pretty transparent with it. I don't love the fact that I have two of the big ones in there. I just think the way we were kind of cautious about one of them last year, and I mentioned something about the motor, and I ended up jinxing myself. So that certainly would not be, um, the way that we want to move forward with that. I think I had mentioned too, the other thing that's going to happen, or at least we don't have any information that's not going to happen. There's going to be a new emissions change on the heavy duty stuff like that. So when that happens, we would probably defer anyway to let some people work the bugs out of those things so we don't have to. So I'm kind of put between the rock and a hard place. It's like, do I go a little more aggressive this year because I know some things that are changing that I don't want to be the guinea pig to? But mostly that I can send you the list of everything. So I depreciate everything out based on service life or hours. So anything that's like 1 ton or below, the goal is optimal replacements between 12 and 15 years. Depending on what it is and what it does, that might stretch longer. In water and sewer, that is more of a accelerated level, just because of some of the work that those things do, and they're sitting outside constantly. Um, but I can send that to you. I think vehicles with license plates on them is somewhere around 65, I believe, right now. I have you're occupying both of my I have you on both my screens in front of me, so I'd have to blow it up
Okay.
to
I think
see it. But
it just, you understand, like, like the concern is that we defer, but then we don't know that next year there's even more vehicles, and then we're not, then it's just a compounding. So,
no, not at
yeah.
all. And like some of the bigger stuff too. So the goal is like that 2012, really 2027 is the time that it's out. Any of our bigger loaders and stuff like that, we're gonna get 25 to 30 years out of. Like I said, as long as the backhoes aren't something that the water division's using, just because of some of the abuse that they go through in their day-to-day, those should be accelerated too. We have a couple vehicles in parks too that are, early 2000s that are next to new looking. So there's no sense. We talk about it every year. There's no sense in bringing it up.
What about 13, the Fort van? What is that used for, and what's the condition of that one to be 11 years old?
Buildings. So the working in out of a van. This was a hand-me-down from the light department. So I think that what the group would prefer is obviously something with toolboxes on it. It's a little easier to get in and out of, than your Ford Econoline van. The other van is just dead in the parking lot. That thing is basically a paperweight. They can't get it inspected.
Which one?
33, the older one of the two.
Oh, that's a truck pickup with plow, right?
Oh, I thought I had two
So
vehicles on here.
33, the 2000, the 3/4 ton pickup.
Oh no, so that's a typo on my end. So they want to replace that 3/4 ton van with a pickup truck with a plow. So that's sitting out here behind the shed.
So that's a 2010 van.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Can you just change that in the description? And then they want to replace it. Yeah. And now. Okay. Any questions on fleet, or do you want to keep on moving?
We'll come back to the the 2012 dump truck perhaps when we get down a closer to the budget.
I mean, I'm
I'd like to-
wondering, and I don't know if this is too early. It's my first year doing it. Like, is there a way to, I guess, rank these, Joe? And again, I know that makes it difficult. It would just, I guess, in a sense, like, what do you think needs to be replaced first and what lasts? I don't know if that's an easy ask or not. Probably not.
I could probably do that. I think last time everything that we cut, we kind of ranked, that was like second tier priority by default.
Mm-hmm.
I can make them battle it out for what's left, I think.
I'm gonna say, like, some sound like they, if it's dead in the parking lot, sounds like we got to take care of that. But
So that one just, it won't pass the inspection to
Right.
be roadworthy, so it's basically just there.
So I'm sorry, I probably missed this last time, but the yellow are maybe gonna, the yellow are maybe gonna stay, maybe not. And then the ones that are not highlighted at all
We've
are
nixed.
definitely staying? Oh, you
Yeah,
nixed?
anything not highlighted with the zero, with nothing, we've nixed. Anything not highlighted with the number, we haven't really rated in any way. Yellow was sort of, not necessarily remove it, but what ripe for discussion as we move along.
Okay, thank you.
And then if something was orange, it was get more info on it.
I think
Okay,
we
thank
get
you.
into those in buildings, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Why don't we get down to buildings?
No, this one was the one that was cut the biggest last time. Left of the two pieces for the library that Catherine talked about.
Mhm.
We also talked about the roof at Town Hall. So an update with this one, if we have to, there's two sections of this roof around the parapet and the elevator that really need to be flashed and redone. But our roofer was on the building looking at it the other day. And unless we were thinking about doing a solar project immediately, we could cut this number down to about 15 grand and do what we have to do. And consensus was that we're comfortable with, the condition of everything up there, that if you were to push it off a year at this point, you're not doing anything that's going to risk something else more catastrophic happening. I would probably say you should probably do that. There's a couple more as we get down. I have the same type of comment on.
So the 50 would just be for flashing repairs? 15?
No, to do the flashing repairs around, let's see, I got it in front of me, sorry. Around the two sides of the parapet, need to get some work done to them. And then also around the elevator shaft that they were just working on. So there's a couple of smaller sections they can do instead of having to do a whole roof replacement. That will give us exactly what we need and allow us to punt on the asphalt shingles for a little bit. Because the condition of those, the age is getting up there, but they're not that bad. Once the people that do that every day took a look at it, they said there's still life in it.
Would they be doing these flashings if they did a roof replacement though? Like, we're doing flashing and then when they strip the roof, aren't they redoing all the flashings to tie into the new roofing?
Yep, They
Oh,
have
they'd
to,
be doing. Was it
right?
Frank?
Oh, Tracy,
Oh, go
they
ahead.
have to, I mean, they have to reflash it.
They would only have to reflash where they take the asphalt off, but they
Right.
wouldn't touch it if we were to change.
The problem
But
now we got to,
putting the whole roof on is gonna take all that flashing off too, but
So most of this fill is work around the parapets.
I
To
know, but
secure.
I worry with the patchwork roof. So now we got some flashing repairs, but we still have old roof shingles. Like, again, 50 grand this year could be 75 grand next year in market conditions. So
Could be.
hunting the roof may end up costing us more money than actually saving us money. I'm not saying it's going up to 75, but even if it went up 10 to 15%, I think most shingles are coming from Canada.
So why don't we put it back to the 50 and maybe come back later on and see if it's,
Yeah,
see if it's necessary.
They're coming from Canada. We might need to make it 65, but that's.
mm, yeah.
I'll find some domestic, even if I gotta go on a road trip. All right. what
Every
else?
house in town has a pile of extra shingles in their basement or shed from whatever
Mhm.
roof they did. Do a
You
town
can
town
collect
drop
all of
off. It could be
them.
like put it outside in your front lawn.
Yeah.
That's it.
It'll be
Collect
Argyle. It'll
everyone's,
be different colors. It'll look
all
awesome.
different colors, but it's a roof. Who's gonna see it? The seagulls, the drone, whoever does the drone flybys will see it. That's about it.
Yeah. Right.
I have a
Okay.
rubber roof.
Oh, you were right. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so still on this, the bottle fillers we cut down for the senior center. The rubber roof at the senior center, that is the worst conditioned roof out of everything that we have in here. That one is, we would cut something else if this is on the chopping block. The
Yeah, like
Civic
the-
Center windows, we talked about potentially phasing those, so do the lower section first, and come back in subsequent years and work through the building. I think everybody saw the garage door pictures for North Ave.
Yeah.
Then we got into some of the Yule stuff. The only thing we kept was the floor abatement for right now.
Who is servicing? Who services the boiler?
We do. So we would do everything all year long.
Can you remind me how old you think that boiler is?
Ooh, I
And-
I would assume it's probably original to the building,
Yeah.
if not pretty close to it.
And other issue, is it leaking? Is it sections leaking? Is it breakdowns? Do we have any maintenance, a history of maintenance problems with the boiler?
Nothing crazy. Really, it's one of the big drivers behind it is the last one that uses oil. And it's the last one that we have that's insulated with asbestos. The asbestos is fine. It's not friable. It's still there. It's totally good. I think even before me coming in here and essentially functioning as the scribe here, they were working through that boiler list, and this was just on it, and it happens to be the tailpiece at the end.
Are-
Given the state of the building and the plan for the building, it's made sense to defer for now.
Would they be allowed to go to gas? Or is there a moratorium on new gas connections?
For something like that, I don't want to speak for them. I think we would be able to convert that should we have to.
Joe, I don't think there's gas that goes up to go up that street. I think
Yeah,
that's,
so if that's the case, we would either have to bring it up. We could figure that out with them. That's not a,
but there was a reason, but yeah,
Yeah. Or you could replace it with the newer oil burning, which would probably not be on anyone's goal in town to put a new piece of oil burning equipment in. But
no, you could do electric too, depending on, again, that not my expertise. I need somebody to help me scope that, but
like a heat pump system, and then you probably electrical upgrade. It's a big project. So okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
mhm. Let's see, the big change, the Woodville, the roof at the Woodville. Our buildings folks are okay. We're deferring that for now.
Okay.
Let's see, we left in the drawings for the heat pumps and things like that. I said that was mentioned in our green communities application. The 60-ton RTU at the Dolbear, we have yellow, but we kept the bigger one in that follows it. So I think we're fine with changing this and leaving it as is right now.
Do we know the 80 ton is the worst in worse condition, I guess, or what? I don't know. What
Yeah,
that
so I was
adjective
told,
is.
yeah, the 80-ton is the one that we want to replace. The unit that's on the roof now, they don't make anymore. So that's the
Right.
reason why we have to replace it. So they're gonna put something new up there. They were going over the cribbing for it today, actually.
What, the steel?
Just however it sits on top of the rubber roof up there, whatever it needs to sit on, because the unit that's up there isn't the same unit that you're gonna be able to buy, so it's gonna be slightly different. So now they need to make sure they match that, or at least have it prepared for it.
Yeah, that's always a tough.
Yeah.
I would expect new structure underneath. the different footprints, different ways they vent, all that kind of stuff. It never quite matches up to these old
Correct.
supports in my experience with replacing RTUs. But okay, so 80 ton seems like the right one out of the two.
At least for now. And then I'll actually gonna put in probably a grant for the other one.
Yeah.
See where we get with that. Oh, let's see, the
Do you
water
think,
heater.
sorry, I'm going to go back to you real quick. Do you think there's any grant to replace an oil boiler? Like, is there any more money somewhere, like, of trying to get rid of the old oil ones, you think, in the world, or not really?
Oh yeah, no, that's probably a slam dunk. Just the
Like,
question is what's gonna be, the elephant in the room is what's the intended use of the building. If you're gonna say you're gonna keep it the way it is now and we're gonna rent it for the next 10 or 12 years, then do it.
right,
If, it's gonna be debated, then
right.
maybe you
Then,
keep on keeping on until, a more formal vetting process, idea, plan ahead is laid out there.
yeah. Okay. I did ask the question about future use discussions. I just haven't heard back yet. So maybe by next meeting I'll have more info on that.
Does the rent from their lease cover a lot of the maintenance, or are we putting more money into the building than they pay in rent?
I don't know. We don't, our group at DPW doesn't manage the lease. So I would assume it just gets paid into the general fund and funds everything across the board. I don't think it's set up as an enterprise or anything like that where it's driven to be self-sustaining.
Yeah, the lease says maintenance, grounds, trash are all responsible of the tenant. It's the big stuff, structural capital that falls on the town per the lease. And the tenant's responsible for paying utilities, obviously. Okay.
Galvin hot water heater, we have that in there from last time. Bottle
Great.
fillers from last time, still here. We talked about the electrical service at the Doyle. Then to round out the building section, we had the elevator, badge, access, and ADA improvements, which I owe you something on. I apologize.
Right.
Yeah, that's one, just wondering how much has been spent in last year's, and if this is needed again this year. Maybe it's
So,
more of an every other year thing, or not. Maybe it got.
no, like I said, this is going to be something that when the opportunity is right for it. This year's probably not the case. It should just be a standing operating line. Kind of like, I don't know, if you were around, we used to have painting pop up on this, and then finally it became an operating line. This should be the same thing. If we have these things out there, we should just be chipping away at it annually on a rotating basis.
So you think we should zero that out,
We can. I
or
mean,
do you
this is
want to
still,
do you want to check the info first before saying anything like that?
so I'll put it this way. It's not like we don't do it. We won't do anything. Every time we touch a street, we're still adding ramps, no matter what. Every time the TAC puts a crosswalk in or something like that, we're still addressing it. Basically anything we do looks to the ADA first. So, all that will still go on. So whatever the pleasure of the group is, really.
So can you give me a couple of examples besides curb cuts of what you used that money for?
Sure, doors, so like widening out doors, door pulls that are too heavy, different ramps, different spaces like that, that might not be particularly where they're supposed to be. It could be signage, you name it.
Okay. So should we make this orange because you're gonna go still do some research on it? Or
No, that's my fault. I owe it to you. I got something from FEMA that was due
Okay,
kind of
let's
ASAP.
yeah,
So
let's keep it orange exactly, and then let's get back to it and let us know, I guess, how again, I thought there was sort of like a hit list of things, but
there is. I'll share it
yeah,
with you when I
okay.
leave, when we get off of this.
We have blue.
Um, yeah, I don't know why we turned these blue. I couldn't tell you.
Why are these blue?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Color.
I don't remember zeroing them all out, to be honest with you. Can you, Landrigan? I still thought we had Forest Glade and Landrigan in our spreadsheet, but is that I'm fine. Removing it helps. I'm just,
We had cremation, team room, new pump, playground 2, all were in. So the
Right.
blue ones were in.
we're in. Okay, so let's talk, let's talk Landrigan. Let's talk those, well, we know the cremation, Landrigan. Joe, do you think you have reasons why these may have been zeroed out? Like
Honestly, I can't
anything, any
remember.
thoughts, wisdom?
No, I mean the rockery again is more that one I would say is more of a we can work with it now. We'll have to do something to it eventually. I think I had said last time too, depending, that one is a good one where writing for an earmark in the state budget. You know, it's a nice picture at the end of the day when it's all fixed up and rehabbed and looking nice. Again, you're rolling the dice on it a little bit, but you know, I think comparatively speaking, that's more of a nice to have right now than a must. So I think I'm totally fine with that one. Zeroing out at the moment.
What does the team think about the cemetery being zeroed out? Are there any proponents for it? I'm interested in what people think about the cemetery not being on.
I mean, the fact that big one, I think, makes it a lot easier to cut.
Did that come up last year? I don't recall. It
I
seems
think it
familiar.
did.
Yeah.
It did. It was actually bigger. You know,
Oh,
if you do cut it, I would just come back again next year and probably go try to get a warrant article to be able to accomplish the whole thing instead of just the walls. So if it makes it easier to move it, I mean, we're already used to deferring it. I won't hold it against anybody if you vote for it to go down.
I think you had mentioned other cemetery upgrades needed as well, right? Or is it roads, or besides the cremation, is there other work at Forest Glade that's coming down the pipe that maybe this could all be done as part of a bigger project through maybe a warrant article?
We probably don't want to do an expansion into the woods because the stormwater stuff would get pretty challenging because it's pretty wet out there. And I would imagine there's probably wetlands there too. We did the roofs in the buildings last year, so those are in pretty good shape. The only other thing that we would probably end up wanting to do down there at some point in time, we'd patch up some of the streets and maybe replace the irrigation system where all the heads are. But before we did that, I'd need a little bit more time. I don't have any of that really prepped out.
Yeah.
But what this one would turn into is instead of doing the walls, I think I shared with you the whole. There's some direct burial. There's some walls. Basically everything past the little workshop on the left-hand side, which is wet at about 2 feet. We'd probably put it all right in there, and we do the whole thing. You know, with the
Yeah. Okay.
changing of the guard and everything else going on, I can look to see if maybe we can revisit borrowing out of the perpetual care. That wasn't too high of a request, or it wasn't looked at as something that we wanted to do at the time, but maybe we revisit it.
And it would effectively pay itself off, right? Like, is the 150, is the math behind this that people would buy the vaults or whatever? I forget what they're called. I think they're vaults. And that money would be effectively offset the cost of this? Do
So
we
we
know
would do
that?
two things. So any one of these you sell, so there's obviously there's a cost for the physical space, and then everything that gets sold on that property pays into the perpetual care account. So it does two things. It would pay itself back, but it would also plant more into the investment account that they use to offset the cemetery operating budget. It's a town council decision. It's not a me thing. It's not a DPW thing. But my recommendation would be, if we're going to do the whole thing,
Yeah.
it would obviously come with a cost study and a couple other changes there. We don't pre-sell anything, but if you had the means to pre-sell 50% of it, let's say,
Mhm.
And it paid itself back, I think that would be an advantageous approach to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Could we take a look at see where we are with respect to the budget? Just a brief, little
I'll scroll
run down
down.
the bottom.
Two,
Oh.
three.
No, not that. No, we're not that
Yeah.
far.
Not bad, not bad. Okay, good. Thank you. We go back.
The warrant articles up there, so those are guaranteed. So like if if it gets on the warrant, that would be for Springtown meeting.
That's what our goal would be, yeah.
Okay.
We'd
And
include
like, and then that would be done. So like we would be assured that like the Yuleby ball court would get done, sidewalks, Hall Park done. Like that money, if approved, would go towards these specific projects.
yeah, we'd add it into that.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll catch you should catch an economy of scale with the pricing.
Yep.
That's $440,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dolbear, we spoke about the path and this might be more than just rubber surfacing. If rubber, in terms of the access to this playground area, um, I do think this should be brought back to us next year. I know there's a comment about trying to get all the playgrounds done and being done with it, but I have a little bit of a concern that if this isn't going to truly assist in someone who would benefit from the surface change to get to the actual playground, then it's sort of not all the way there.
Right.
Um, I don't know. So I'm okay with keeping the zero. What with the intention that we would see it next year, and that would be our playground for next year.
I agree, actually. That makes sense.
Do what others have
That makes sense. I think so too.
okay.
Well, Maple Way was the next one.
Not a bathroom upgrade. So if any, I would change the description. If we think it's outfield fence and batting cages, then I think we should call it that. I know they asked for the fence last year. It was one of the many cuts we had to make,
They asked for the batting cages last year.
and
That
a
was
fence, or maybe it was
Was
the
it
year
and a fence?
before. I remember talking about the fence. It could have been the year before. I know it's come up.
Hey, Phil, can I comment on it?
Go for it, Frank.
First of all, the bathrooms, I don't know, maybe they were just trying to get your attention with it, but as someone who maintains and who has put the bathrooms here, they're in pretty good shape for the town of Wakefield, so I don't know why that would have been on there. Second, I think this is the second or third year, you're right, that they've done this, and they're just throwing a number, 100,000. Joe's right. If they just want the fencing, it's half that. So they haven't done any homework again. They're just throwing numbers out there, trying to get money to do things. When they originally put the temporary fence at Maple Way, 10 years ago, it was so that they could play all-star games there because they needed at least 190, 195 fence to play a game there because we didn't have Blatz at the time. And the lake kind of was not always there for them. So Dennis actually, Fazio made it really nice there. We bought the league actually, not the town, bought the temporary fence and had it installed every year. Since then, the town, us, have been, not through capital, through a warrant, has given $200,000 to make Blatz one of the top fields in the league. So they can play all their all-star games and everything on Blatz. They don't need a regulation field at Maple Way any longer. And they also have the lake, which is very well maintained as to play their other games on. So they have two very good fields. And Maple Way is kind of their third field, which they're not going to be playing any league games, all-star games, anything that needs regulation fencing or hard fencing. And the other reason for the temp fence at Maple Way is if you put it at regulation, the backfield has about a 10-foot outfield behind second base. So they don't have two active fields. So if you put a permanent fence there, then they will have to move the other field if they want to use it for anything besides minor league girls softball. So I still think that they're throwing numbers out there. 100,000, that's not even, you know, they lost me when they said they wanted bathroom upgrades because they didn't even do any homework to find out how much 4 toilets and 2 sinks cost.
Yeah, I
But-
think there was questions about um whether or not the bath, whether it was handicapped accessibility, which would be a huge structural modification to that structure. Not really an
Well-
upgrade at that point.
Well,
So
then you have
they
to do
didn't ask for
Maple
that,
Leaf,
but we
Marcella.
talked about whether or not that was one of the maybe goals. We weren't sure. They put together a presentation. They showed movement of the field and adding bleachers. I think upgrading Maple Way would be a huge benefit to the town, even with those other fields, Frank. But I do wish it had a little more substance behind the ask. It would help. It would help us rate it. And I think in years past, Frank, I think you'll agree. Like part of the reason was we didn't really have a lot of info behind the ask, and so it got put on the cutting floor. And I fear like, and I don't want them to be too depressed by that, but I fear like this is close to that same sort of thing. Like it's a number with not a lot of substance backup behind it. So,
Well,
but
since we're
if,
looking, yeah, since we're
sorry,
looking for solid numbers here, would it clear their heads if we made that 50,000? Because it
I was
sounds
gonna
as though,
suggest something like that, Dan. Yeah, I
yeah,
would support giving him something and to use, they would know best as the WSA, but and then maybe they could use, I don't know what their funding is as an organization, but maybe they can try to figure out a way to bridge the gap if there was a need for more than that. So I think 50 is I would support that,
Frank,
if
Hey,
is
I was
that,
Joe,
not.
Joe, can I
is
ask a
that,
That's a
question?
problem.
go ahead, Frank, sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Joe, does this committee give money to a volunteer organization like that, or would it have to go to Dennis to do the work on the field?
Parks.
Parks.
But they could come up and help pay for stuff. Like the soccer association, I think pays for things outside of the town. So, but I don't know that for sure. I'm speaking a little out of turn, but I'm pretty sure we would not be giving money to the WSA. We're giving money to the town to perform some sort of upgrade to town-owned property that the softball association uses.
So if
Yep.
you were going to, if this is gonna get funded at 50,000, let's say, to do outfield fencing, um, and a batting cage or a pitcher's bullpen or something like that. Dennis, from my staff, would work with them. We would control the budget and the vendor. So, we would lay it out with softball. We'd bring in, we have an on-call fencing contractor. We have somebody that's under contract with us annually to do this type of stuff. So we know what the numbers are. So we'd bring them in to do that. We did similar stuff like that with Walsh. And it ended up being the same. So when the money was allocated for the softball field at the high school, Dennis ended up kind of taking the lead more or less, but working hand in hand with them to make sure that the product delivered work for everybody involved.
Tracy, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just gonna say, the little issue that I have with Maple Way, and it's because I live on Fell Street, is that there's no parking. So it's not like you can have 2 games going on at the same time anyway, you know what I mean? Because there's no place for anyone to park there compared to the other 2 fields, I think, right?
Well, no, I just park on your street in front of your house, Tracy.
Yes, well, that's,
Yeah.
or
So does
right in front of my
everybody else.
driveway and I can't get out. That's nice. Yeah.
Exactly. That's me. Yeah, I'm
And
with
that's
you.
what's been
Yeah.
happening, yeah.
Yeah.
Or some of the girls who even drive themselves or drop off their friends or whatever, they drive in like, 40 miles an hour down Fell Street, which is annoying as well. But yeah, there's just no, I mean, if it's a practice field, maybe, I just don't find it to be, I don't know how many cars fit in the parking lot at Maple Way, but it seems like it could fit 20.
So that would be
It's been a good day.
something, if we were gonna do the rear field completely, I think you'd have to look at the parking. And at the expense of sacrilege, I'd say the columns going into it, you may have to look at modifying them or moving them because one of them's about 11 feet wide and the other one I think is more narrow.
Right.
So that creates a little bit of a choke point there. So if you're gonna put a couple $100,000 into it, I think you can't look past the parking lot and doing it holistic like that.
Yeah. Because there is forest all around it. I know there's forest with some old foundations, by like whether or not that's even feasible. It would make the field more usable to not only the people using the field, but to Tracy's point, like the neighborhood, before we expand its capability of having
Mhm.
tournaments. It's definitely a consideration.
I think I would rather just cut this and say the softball league, whoever else should go to town council, talk with town staff, talk with Joe, talk with the parks people, and come up with an actual plan for a holistic changeover. Like the real set of needs. This is how we envision that kind of change, and make it like a warrant article. Make it a big change. If we're talking about parking lots and new equipment everywhere and really defining two new fields, like I don't want to do this $50,000 at a time over 10 years. Like that's just crazy. So I'd rather have a real plan put together than just giving them a new fence that then we would have to take out and move and find a place to store while we regrade the entire field and then put back out. I don't think it's ready
You're
for
right.
prime
It's
time.
not a solid plan. It should be, a lot more thought out. They have all
So-
kinds of requests without thinking about the real needs.
Yeah, I know. And again, like Phil, I know my daughters have played there as well. So I agree. I don't think the bathrooms need to be done. I think they're in fairly good shape. There's definitely a current drainage issue. So I know like first, third, home plate, whenever there's rain, it always accumulates around the bases instead of rolling off. And again, I don't know what the overall solution is for that. I think the bleachers are fine. I don't think that needs to be done. And I do know they've been asking for the batting cages for a while. So, and I don't know what it would cost. I mean, again, I'm fine giving them a little, like, a batting cage and maybe making home plate first and third a little higher or something. Again, I don't know whether that's 30 or 50. I don't know. Again, I think it would be okay to give them something, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So the Wakefield Soccer Association, right? Like they pay as the association outside the town pays for nets, field lining, goals, flags, like they pay, to operate their program out of their funds. Porta potty. So like I feel like we don't, and this is a discussion we had last year too about funding an organization. Someone just mentioned that, like we want to make sure that we would be funding the infrastructure the town owns and not the equipment that the association only uses, right? I think that's more, I'm looking at it that way, I guess, is that if this money was going to the infrastructure of the field and the property, it's in our purview to review it. But if it's going to be used for batting cages, like I consider that like a soccer net to the soccer teams.
Yeah.
Like that's something maybe we shouldn't be funding.
Gotcha.
A couple of the complaints that I got as well over the past few years is that, or probably the past 5 to 10 years, is that soccer does very well with going to the town businesses and asking them for support. And they obviously get it because we see it. It's on, North Ave. It's their signs. But the complaint is, well, that they already gave to soccer, so they're not going to give to track or baseball or or little league or softball. So there's been a complaint of why aren't we doing this all together to make all our fields nice, whether in terms of doing it as a group instead of individually, because these companies are only going to give to one sport potentially. How are we
Is
going to
it
raise
the
money for
is
these
it
other
the
sports?
is it the rec department or is it is it the parks department that takes care of like playing fields and equipment, Joe?
We would do all the maintenance.
You do
so,
maintenance, but like,
like clay bases, stuff like that. That's all us. Um, I should say like the direct burial bases. And then as far as equipment, like if you had like a hitting, like a net or something like that, that we wouldn't get into that. I don't even think rec does. Um, I don't even
I
think,
mean, each sport has their own revenue, obviously, because we paid for those sports, right? I mean,
but you pay the rec department to
Pay-
play a sport. Don't you?
I thought I paid Little League.
I think you pay, none of my kids are old enough to have paid that yet.
Like, who did I pay?
I think you end up paying Little League, let's say, and then a portion, I'm sure there's some sort of monetary contribution on their part for using the fields, I
So
think
Joe,
it's,
I can jump in with that.
Oh,
For
thank you.
the leagues, soccer, baseball, softball, they all pay the rec department $5 per registered kid for the
Okay.
use of fields, and that's it. And it really doesn't cover anything.
Oh,
No.
no, it doesn't.
Wow.
That's nothing.
It's a technicality for the insurance, obviously, that you paid. So if someone gets hurt on the field, it's covered by insurance.
Wow.
Wow.
So they're not paying the town anything to technically maintain anything.
Wow.
But those are town sports. What about like the high school uses the soccer fields? The same thing?
The
And they
high
should
school
pay-
kids pay sport fees, but that
Mhm.
probably just goes to the school system.
Right.
But yeah, the high school kids all now pay fees for every sport they play.
Right,
They've done that for a
so,
while.
it's still another $5 each from
Oh, I don't know if
the
there's a
athletic
transaction
department?
between the schools and the town.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
That's where it gets gray.
yeah.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for
I
sharing.
feel
Not a-
like the fencing is in good shape, and I don't. I'm more inclined to reverse saying keep any money and almost zero. Like I think Sam or someone mentioned zeroing this out, and
Yeah.
no offense to the softball association, which again my kids have participated in, and they're a good group. But in terms of our purview under capital planning, we have to make sure we're treating these organizations all fairly. Because like if we start approving this, my worry that we're going to have every other sports organization that's been self-funding things coming to us looking for similar. I'm a little afraid of a precedent, which I don't know if that's a valid thing, but it's something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of years ago when the request first came through.
Yeah.
No, I can see your point on that.
So is the question, we give them a batting cage or zero out everything?
I think
Yeah.
I think I'll make a proposal to zero it out.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree. Yeah. I
And
agree.
ask them to come back with a capital improvement plan for the field. If this is their number one field, come back with something that would improve the use of the field for the town. Because there's also tennis courts. There's other Maple Way is not just softball.
Correct.
There are community tennis courts there
And the playground is there too.
and the playground.
It is a beautiful basketball court.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the basketball court. That's right.
I'm sorry, it's not beautiful. But
Where's
you
the
know,
basketball? Oh, the
in the
Yeah,
corner.
right.
way in the
right,
back.
the asphalt. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
piece of asphalt with
It's
the-
better than the Yule Fields basketball court that has a tree growing in the middle of half court. So it's
It's
fine.
basically two poles and a piece of asphalt. That's all it
Hey,
is.
that's
That tree
that's
plays
like all
tough
star.
defense.
Does it have a net? Yeah. Okay, Walton, I think we had agreed would be our playground, or sort of our play area
Mhm.
funding. So I'm comfortable keeping that green and keeping that 75 in.
Yeah. I think based on last week's discussion, I agree.
I'd also feel bad to zero out everything that is in the FPC.
What? Oh yeah, we want to keep something in there.
I could retitle it if it makes you feel better.
No. Well, again, 3 would be going to warrant article at least. It's not.
Yeah.
it'd just be getting done in another manner. I'm okay with the tables. I understand it's a function hall and its use, and these tables are ancient. So, looking at the realm of things, I think 8,000 we can give 8,000 to the Civic Center.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
think one thing with that too, not to put my own influence on it, but Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, those are not just the Civic Center though. When we got something where we have to set something up remotely or all over the place, we're using that cache to do what we have to do more often than not, aren't we?
Oh yeah, the town borrows tables and chairs from all over from each other.
Right.
But as far like whether it's the schools, the library, the senior center, if we need something for a function down the common, we might grab stuff from all over, depending upon the what the need is.
Mhm.
So they're not just civic center tables; they're town tables. I mean, if you wanted to use them for a function at the high school or at the 9/11 or at the senior center, you could make a request and we would bring them over to wherever you needed. It's not Dan.
Right.
Dan is very good like that. He will take care of everybody with his resources.
Yep.
So I know I've been probably the biggest hard ass on this, and I totally respect at 8,000, there's a clear need. Tables are used all the time. Like, I'm not disputing any of that. Again, I just want to state for a record, when it was just the quote is from WB Mason, because that's where we get our office supplies, is not a compelling argument for why that's the quote you put forward. It's under 10,000, so there's no procurement requirements besides just using best practices. So if the thing was, I looked at tables, this was the best value for the sturdy quality, or this brand is a quality brand, like if there was that comment, I'm totally fine. I'm totally comfortable. It was just this is the number I saw. This is how I want to just kind of replace it and move on. Like, I still not thrilled about, but for 8,000 for tables that are used, seems like every day, like, I'm not going to hold it up over the quibble, but I just want to like state why I've been
Yep.
being a pain over such a small matter. But that's my 2 cents. I'm fine with keeping it.
Oh, so you thought he should be a little bit more competitive and
Yeah,
getting-
or just like give me like this brand is the bet, like give me something more than just I looked at the one place, saw that was the price, did the math and sent it in. Like, that's
yeah. It's a
you
good
know,
point.
if we're buying something that's going to last 10, 15 years, like, make sure that it does. Like, that's, but I've harped on this long enough.
No, I mean, I think that's true. It's always good to get competitive information, right? I mean, let's see how it is to Staples, right? Just to get a competitive quote.
Yeah, if you do a quick Google search, depending on, they're like anywhere from 300, 350, but they don't have the ones I'm looking at don't have, this is like Uline, Granger, Global Industries, sort of big thing. So, but yeah, I hear you, Sam. I comment well taken. What do people think? Do we want to? So are you okay keeping it and let him do it, and you said that we said it for the record, I guess, Sam, or what do you want to do?
I'm done.
Okay.
No, and so
We can keep
let me,
it.
Phil, I didn't look, so I'm going to look now as well. So you're saying when you do Staples or another place,
I didn't do staple. I just did, I don't know, deluxe or high strength round 5-foot tables. I'm listening, and I didn't,
I'll do a search right now. I mean, just if
Yeah.
it's something similar, I'm fine with it.
yeah.
I think we're not giving this guy enough credit here. I think he's bought these tables before.
Yeah.
He's identified these tables from WB Mason to be the ones that
Okay.
he wants to buy, and, he's the department. We're just,
Yeah. Take
we're
their
not here
word
to
for it.
instruct him on his procurement practices.
Yeah, and it is 8,000. So when I do a search, I'm getting a range of 280 to 390,
Right.
which I think is in the range that he's looking at. So I'm fine with this. The price he did. I mean, if I found Staples to be 100 or 150, maybe I'd question it, but it's coming right in the range. So I support this.
Okay. Any other comments on the tables?
No, but I think Sam is right. If the amount were bigger, he would, the requester of the good has a responsibility to shop around a little bit.
It's not big.
Procurement process. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we make that green for now, Joe? Scribe extraordinaire.
I only get what I get.
Okay. Plow and sander rebuild. I had a note. What was that? What was my note?
Yep, so that actually dropped. So what I'm gonna end up doing is instead of having to buy a new sander, the parts, the shells of the two that I have that are in the worst condition, I can replace the bearings and the chains and everything on them. The metal is in decent enough shape where it doesn't need to be totally put out to pasture. And then the other piece would just be to replace a broken snowplow that we lost this winter. Excuse me.
Okay. Keep it in for now, I guess, unless anyone thinks it's to replace a broken piece of equipment. So what
The
is
snow
Julie?
machine. So this is
You really need the snow machine? You really need it, Joe?
I don't know. I mean, I'll put it this way. So the work that those guys do is all by hand. These things basically replace, they used to snow blow sidewalks with 24-inch snow blowers. And you can imagine, like, if I passed by you and, anything else we have on the street, your snow blower's not doing anything compared to what I, just dropped in front of you. So these are rugged enough. They have two now. This would be to replace the oldest one that they have in the fleet. Similar to Tim's stuff. I don't know if it's inappropriate for Frank to kind of give you a little bit more of the ins and outs on.
I can just tell a story. It doesn't have to be a comment on it. So it's basically speed when you have a machine as opposed to a shovel or a snow blower. And so this year we had two storms on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
And the crew went out Sunday morning to open up, made sure the Civic Center was open up for WBA basketball and any activities that started at 8 a.m. on at the Civic Center. You got to remember they do the sidewalk. The group does all the sidewalks around the Civic Center, all the sidewalks around the town hall, all the sidewalks around the senior center, all the sidewalks around the Hurd School, all the sidewalks and parking lot around the police station and the parking lots at the senior center. So these machines are used. They're not easy. They're not easy lots to plow. So if you look at it as a timely thing, the same with the senior center. If it snowed on a weekday, it might not be able to be opened because it takes a long time to get everything done until noontime. But because of the crew and because of the equipment, they can get it done rather quickly. But that's just my 2 cents. I wanted to use the WBA thing because a lot of people didn't think it was going to be opened at 8 a.m. that day. And they went there. They went to the police fire first and then went to the Civic Center and got that open for everybody. So that was my 2 cents.
Thank you. A few years ago, we approved a sidewalk machine for the high school. So
That's
how's
used
that
at
proven?
that's used at the high school.
Proven? How's that proven? Once has that been received? I don't know how long those things take once you order it. So I'm assuming we have it. And is it getting used? And can that be used as an example of why this is, like just to show that these are important pieces of equipment for snow operations?
So
Yeah, it was received and I can tell you it gets used. And if it stops snowing at 3 a.m., and they want to get the schools open by 6, you're not going to have two custodians go out there with snow blowers doing the sidewalks.
Right.
So that's what you got to look at is the timing. Yes, we could do it with snow blowers, but school's going to be closed an extra day while they get the whole thing cleaned up.
What is the machine? Snow machine? Like what is it?
It's like a little. It's a little
Like a
like
bobcat.
a ride on. Think picture a lawnmower, a ride on lawnmower, but you stand up on it, and it's got a nice plow on it. And actually, it has a snow blower attachment, so if it's kind of deep, it could throw the snow further. It's got a salt machine on it where you put the salt in it so it can spread it as it's plowing and blowing the snow. It can also dump salt on the sidewalk. It's for $35,000. It's a great piece of equipment, I can tell you.
Who does the lake when it snows?
Around the sidewalks,
Yeah.
that would be Joe's highway department. I think,
Yeah.
Joe, don't they do that once it stops snowing though, right?
Yeah, so right now we don't have the luxury of having anybody out. Everybody's on the street first. And then they move to that, with the exception of
And what do you use
The
to do
buildings.
that? Would you
How
be
big
able to use this snow machine for that?
you could. They're beefy enough to be able to do it. We have a larger machine that we bought a couple of years ago. We have a few of them. They're basically tanks, and they do what they do very well. They're one-trick ponies, but they're virtually unstoppable. So those will go out and do that. The only difference, Phil, with this machine versus what we have going on at the schools is that our buildings folks put this in the trailer I was talking about last time, and they take it all over the place. That machine at the high school, I believe, does not leave.
Right.
So that's there for their campus, more or less.
Okay.
So this is not to cut in, but that's
Okay.
essentially the machine right there with the snowplow on the front of it. And like Frank had said, the operator stands on the back of it, and there's a snowblower attachment with it too. So depending on how much snow you have, you can either push it out of the way or throw it out of the way.
Right. Any comments or thoughts on the snow machine while we're on it? We okay leaving it on?
I say let's come back to it. So I think it's helpful to have everyone on. I can hear the benefit of it, and I guess I'd say leave it on for now, and maybe we come back to it. That's just my thought.
Yeah.
Okay, left traffic sign printer. So I told you last time I'd come back to you. So your standard double-sided street sign is anywhere between $130 and $200, depending on where it is and what it is. And we replace approximately 300 a year. The thing that kills us is traffic advisory will vote to change a parking regulation. In Greenwood, there was some different speed zone things that they were talking about. And as soon as they make a decision that requires signage, it falls on us to do it. Unfortunately, there is no traffic advisory budget, so we just kind of absorb that. The real reason why the cost is so crazy is you can't order the sign in just a sticker or a skin. You have to order it with the aluminum behind it. If the sign's faded, it makes no sense to buy a new piece of aluminum when it's dead straight as an arrow. You could print the sign, like a standard no parking sign for somewhere around $6 versus that. So you'd essentially take a faded blank, drop it down, reprint it, and put it back up. You'd be constantly reusing that aluminum unless it was hit and it was deformed. But even then, you still could probably straighten it out a little bit.
How much do you say you spend in signs every year?
Ooh,
Well, it's
30
like
30,000.
200
Over 30.
times. So this thing will pay for itself in 2 years or less.
So what it would do is, the nice thing about it is it would give somebody something to do as like gap fillers, but you're right. It would also be, we could just start taking blanks that are faded and create inventory, and only rely on something that's, if for some reason we had to put up a solar stop sign that was reflective and blinked or something like that, there's no way around that. That is what it is. We're not going to be able to manufacture that, but there's no reason why we can't take a faded sign that is no longer compliant because there's no reflectivity, and then make it compliant in-house and throw it right back up.
What is the lifespan of such a printer?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. It's probably all in the maintenance, I would think. I mean, really, all it is it's a big plotter with a whole bunch of different prints for it.
Do you know of other towns that have one?
Quite a few. So they went and looked at one. Tewksbury gave us somebody that used to work with us, works in Tewksbury now in their sign shop. So that's where we got the idea from. So they do a lot of their stuff in-house. So we're able to see it, push buttons, and ask them if they liked it. You know, how reliable it was from an uptime standpoint, and all indications seem that it was worthwhile for them.
Do you have any idea who the manufacturer is, Joe? Is it Hewlett Packard?
No, I don't think so. 3M makes most of the films for it. I don't know
Okay.
exactly what the name of the printer is off the top of my head.
Yep.
It wouldn't be Dell would be the computer hooked up to it. We would just hook it up to one of our desktops
Uh-huh.
that we have down there anyway.
Right.
I would,
I think we leave it in.
I think we leave it in too.
Yeah, I liked this last week also, so I'm fine with. I'm almost tempted to move it to a green, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Fine with that.
I
Yeah.
think I think the sign printer makes a ton of sense, and if it helps on operating and eventually pays for itself, that's the
Yep.
One of the huge things we could do now is we could leverage so anytime the town does something that's like custom work, we need to have Jen, our content and communications manager, make us an image. We have to take it to a vendor, they have to print it, proof it, and then sign it for us. It would just be 2 stops. We would tell Jen what the file size needs to be and the pixel ratio or whatever that is. And then we would do it in-house. So we'd be cutting out some of the middleman things that we have to do.
and the signs would be compliant to whatever industry
Correct.
standard.
So what it ends up doing is you get the program that prints it is preloaded with the current version of the MUTCD traffic signs. So everything would be compliant.
Okay.
And then you have the ability to make customs, but if you needed, a standard, they have different names and different files for what the standard signs are, but you'd be able to go in to print anything that's standard and referenced in that manual.
Okay. Backhoe rebuild, I think self-explanatory.
Yeah, this is the one we were talking about last time. So I have a machine that our Parks Department uses. The cab and the rollover protection system for the operator is rotted off the frame. We got 30 years out of her. She's pretty tired. What this would be is we're planning on upgrading a frontline backhoe, one of 2 that we have in water and sewer. We would take the machine that's down there now and basically refresh it, change the hydraulic lines, some of the things that have been supplemented or they're susceptible to the weather, and some of the work that they do, and replace it, repack all the bearings and everything so it's tight, and then repurpose that to the Parks Department, who should be able to keep that for 20 years, 15, 20 years.
And okay, so this is right. Then there's no way to throw it in sewer or water division. I know there's already a backhoe in water, but
No, so what we ended up doing last year, we replaced the backhoe there. We took the worst of the 2 that we had, or the one that was the most tired, and replaced it and traded it in.
yeah,
The next piece down, it's still tired. It's still done a lot of work. Nothing that those things do is easy. But that machine was in better condition where it made sense to look at it and rebuild it and repurpose it in-house. And then, come to find out in the middle of thinking about that, we had the issue that we had happen. So, we'll get a good frontline machine for our parks and forestry folks, but in the event that it needs to go back out and operate on, some of the harder things, it's still totally capable to do that. And then this thing, like I said, will last until the wheels fall off of it after this work is done to it.
okay. Can I make a request for the fire department line item? on the onboard vehicle computers. I know the original letter said 25,000, but I thought the chief said that was a typo. And I don't want that. I'm just trying to prevent that becoming a, if I remember right, maybe someone heard differently, but I thought it was a typo because he sent a revised letter with 5250. That if we edit that 25 so it doesn't become a question when presenting this and why
Good
we
idea.
only approved 5250 of a $25,000 fire department request, if you know what I mean.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I remember he sent a revised letter and I thought it was because he said he realized it was a typo.
Yeah, something about iPads and they.
Yeah, no, I know.
He
Yeah,
explained. I don't remember it.
I'm just imagining the questions coming up when someone, oh, why did you only approve, 5? So just, it would clear it up. Thanks. Town camera.
Yeah. So
Like,
this is one we
give me-
talked about last time. I updated it. So the price to do everything that we have is $70,000. So I just split it proportionally, and I added it in the enterprises too. For what
Remind me
they
where
have.
these cameras are. Are these street cameras?
They're all over the place. So we have some in the Nahat Street yard waste site, in and around our salt sheds. We have some of them on our building where we have materials stocked outside. There's some of them on the outsides of the buildings that we can see the streets from, so we'll look into those during the winter to see it's snowing. There's a couple in Forest Glade Cemetery. As crazy as it sounds, sometimes the cemetery is a really active place, and it's not always people going in there to, be respectful. This is some in there in the enterprises. So, like, a good example is the pumping station, in the corner of Farm Street and Water Street. I may have mentioned this last time, but at the sake of being repetitive, these would be installed in the wet wells in different places where
I
it'd be
remember.
it'd be beneficial for someone to see what's going on before they actually enter it. Another area is in a treatment plant where they do chlorine transfers and there's a bunch of nasty gases. We could be able to have eyes on that person who's over there basically alone. So that God forbid if there's any reason to, sound the alarm and get help, we'd have it visually right there in front of us.
And where would the monitoring station be?
So they're remote. So this would be the same system that the school department ended up using. So this would include, we need to upgrade our recorders and things like that, but they basically give us a login to a server. The crazy thing to me is, so there's no annual costs to this. It's a one-time implementation and hardware thing. And then there is no annual fee to it, which I was blown away with. So we would be able to, like, I could see it from my desktop. Our supervisors for the places that they manage can see what they have going on.
So there's no control room or anything like that.
No, 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 no. This would all be remote. So you would log into it and be able to see it. Yeah. We don't have somebody stationary there like flipping switches or anything like that.
Okay.
So
And
So
and the figure's 40,000.
40.
It's-
That's about
it's-
half, you said?
yeah, there's
You
more.
came in with 75.
No, so it's 72,000 to change everything that we have. And order a couple more for when our fuel station gets rebuilt. So we need 4 for that to monitor that thing. So it split it. So $40,000 covers everything on the tax levy, which would basically be the DPW barn, the
Okay, I
salt
see.
sheds, the pit, the cemetery, and then the rest is split up between the water and sewer enterprises at 16,000 apiece.
Okay.
Okay, folks. So 2.279. Want to scroll back up? Is there any of the items that anyone's thinking about that we want to talk about?
What's our target again? I'm sorry to keep
We're
asking.
about 2.1, but yeah, but that total includes the leases up above. So 2.1 is what we're shooting for. I'm sure if we came in a little under, the town would be appreciated, but knowing the capital requests we're cutting, I would love to stick to our budget as close to possible.
The leases are in that sum, are they not?
They are, yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
good.
So,
Good.
is there any line item anyone's kind of been thinking about since we talked about it tonight, or you want to revisit?
The third police car?
The police, okay.
third police car. It's green, but
It's 2 cruisers and a K9 vehicle, so
yeah, right there. Yeah.
yeah.
I guess my argument would be that that his um, his justification for it was the same as the couple of years in the past, and we have recently given him the 3. If we kept that up, if we kept up the 3-car pace every year, it would be uh, outrageous. I mean, it would be just a huge amount. I mean, I don't have a stronger argument than the fact that we've done this for him before in the recent past, and we shouldn't do it every year.
Just frankly, he's been on long. I will just say from a point of note that there's been 3 cars every year since I've been on this committee in 2016, except for 1 year where we cut it to 2, and then someone amended the warrant article to fund a 3rd vehicle at town meeting. So we cut it, and then someone made a motion at town meeting, and then they ended up getting 3 that way. But every other year we've approved 3
Shall we
vehicles.
try it again?
Phil, I'll just add, and Dan, that's a great point. But technically, he's only replacing 2 cruisers. So the new chief, who's been there for a couple of years, he learned from the old chief. The old chief used to ask for 3 service cruisers every year, and then if he needed a K9 vehicle, a motorcycle, a van, he would ask for a 4th vehicle.
Right.
So it got to the point where we were saying no to the 4th vehicle, just giving him the 3 cruisers. And then the 1 year he kept doing something to that effect, and we cut him down to 2, but he got to 3. But I'll say for the new chief, who's been great working with this committee, is in the last couple of years, he has gotten his transport van, and he's asking for the K9 vehicle. So technically, and I think it was the electric vehicle last year. Technically, he's getting 3 vehicles, but he's only asking for 2 replacement cruisers and his additional vehicle instead of asking for 3. It's hard to look at it. He's asking for 3 vehicles, but only 2 of them are his everyday cruisers. So he's only asking for 2, and he's asking for that 3rd one to replace because of the K9. They need the 2nd K9 car now. I think that's the way he put it. I don't want to start putting words in his mouth, but my comment would be he's been working with the committee to not ask for 4 vehicles and just to keep it at 3 and only replace 2 of his service cruisers and ask for the bonus vehicle as the 3rd one.
Yeah, but Frank, isn't the K9 car a cruiser?
Yes, but it's not something that's out there every day. Again, I don't want to sit here and speak for the chief, but I don't believe it's not something that would be in the everyday rotation.
But it is outfitted like a cruiser, he said, just to that point.
Yes,
But it
yes.
has the cage, it has like something different because it's a K9, but it's still outfitted as a cruiser, but it's specifically K9.
And I don't think it's accounted in his 14 daily cruises that he gave us that number for. I think the K9 is above that. If again, I don't want to start. If I'm saying something that's not right either, I think he has 14 everyday cruises, and that's he's replacing 2 of them, and then the K9 is in addition to that.
Yeah, I think they would depreciate the K9 car in a longer, I think between 3 to 5 years, I think is what they mentioned their expected life from a police cruiser is and the general wear and tear. So this vehicle, you wouldn't see till, probably 10, 12 years, depending on how it gets utilized. So I think what he's doing is substituting one of the line level ones to get this in now, and then it'll come back up as part of the 3 at some point.
My notes said it was 14 patrol cars. 2 of those were K9, and the K9 they're looking to replace has 95,000 miles on it. Was my notes from the February 25th meeting.
Yeah. I thought it was a 14-car fleet.
14-car
Like,
fleet.
yeah, that was then the way you read 2 of the K9s are part of the 14. So because I had asked him how many vehicles he had, and I thought it was the 14 was the total. So it's a 5-year replacement cycle where 1 year it's only 2, but otherwise it's 3 cars to stay that every 5 years they're getting replaced. And last year we only gave him 2, and it was 2, and there was no amendment, I think, at the floor last year.
But he ended up using the money and got 3. I think maybe with rebates and electric, maybe he ended up, didn't he say he ended up getting 3 with the money that was
No, we
appropriated?
cut it to 2 and we thought he was going to sacrifice the EV, but he got the EV.
Oh,
I
thought he
thought
got
that
the
that
E.
was the,
Oh, okay.
I thought we were like cutting the EV, but then he ended up doing the EV. But
And then he
that's
ended up getting it. Yeah.
So he only got 2 last year from us?
my memory of it. Maybe
I'll
I'm
tell you in a
mistaken.
second. Final, we cut the money, but he said he could stretch it to buy the 3, is what the conversation was last year.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure he had a supplemental update where some of the parts to upfit the vehicles he ended up reusing.
So
Um,
he asked for 245. We approved 170. It originally was 2 patrol cars and a detective car. And because the detective car didn't need to be outfitted, it was cheaper. He ended up getting an EV. And I don't know how many, in all honesty, I don't know if he ended up getting 3 vehicles. And so with that 170.
I would say if they said they were getting 3 vehicles were
Yeah.
purchased.
I think I don't know. I feel like the police car is obviously critical to the police department, sort of like a fire truck. And I would support keeping this at full ask, but if the committee,
no.
if the majority of the committee thinks we should cut this by a third, then so be it.
So I tend to lean with leaving it as well, meaning it the full ask.
I'll withdraw my argument. Frank was pretty compelling there. Good job, Frank.
I got the number wrong, but thanks anyways.
Oh,
We'll just have to cut all of Joe's requests then. Okay.
so, so we'll leave it alone.
Sorry, Joe. It's a bad joke. Can
Oh,
you
that was
scroll
a good
down?
joke. I laughed.
Can you scroll down
Yes.
to the next section? I feel we got to keep that roof on for town hall. It's an old building. We have to keep on maintaining it in some way.
Yeah.
What about the basement window grates at the Civic Center?
I see it as a security issue in one thing. But it's one of these things that's going to come back, unless you think the Civic Center qualifies for any sort of special. But I know you guys are really good about identifying every grant already, or we probably would have heard about it. But I see this as a security issue. I have these grates in a lot of my buildings in Cambridge with first floor units, and they're just so critical for security reasons.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But it's 30 grand, but it's, I don't know. Whatever.
Phil, what is our target number? Is it 2.1 or is
So
there?
I was verbally told it's 2,153,000, but I was given that number with an asterisk saying less would be great because of state funding and budgets and
Sure.
but we've been championing for increases on an annual basis because we've been at 2 million for about 11 fiscal years now. It would be great to continue to increase. So I'd like to hit 2.153
Yeah.
if we can.
And then
Okay.
just so I understand this Excel chart correctly, when we go down and look at that red number, is that how much more we have to cut, or are you saying we're like a little over $100,000 away?
A little over
That's our
100,
objective.
146, some
I have it at
147,000 away.
126,966 to go.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
I have a different number on my tracking sheet, so I'm missing something somewhere. So
Okay, all right, so we're close. This is
where's
good.
the 960? Oh, the 966 is coming probably from the leases. I'm like, where's the off? I'm like
Yeah, it would only come
where's
from
the
that.
sixes coming from? Like we have zeros everywhere.
716 right here.
Yeah, we don't have 150, 80. Yeah, slow down for 1 sec. Sorry. 150, 80, 50, 115, 45, 30, 35. Okay, can you scroll? Yeah. 10. Yeah. 15, 150, 25, 10, 40, 15. Oh, 80A. 50, yeah, okay. Keep on going. FPC. Oh, that's what it is. So we only have 75, and then what do we have in miscellaneous?
Most of it.
Okay, and then you have in the red box the total, Joe, 2,279,966.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
So
so
it's a
we're
hair
hundred
under.
and $126,965.53 away from the goal of 2,150,000. 127,000.
Okay.
Well, let's just drop the two-way radio replacement.
Perfect. Actually,
Yeah,
that is a questionable thing. I don't get the belt and suspenders and then a redundancy on top of that as far as communication goes.
The thing I trigger there on is they don't have the capability to communicate to other schools without using
Mhm.
their cell phones, which can get unwieldy. Cell signals in an emergency aren't necessarily something you can be guaranteed on. Like,
Correct.
Yeah.
so, and
Well,
we have in some areas spotty cell phone signals. So I hear the need for that, and that it gives the school system an ability to communicate within the buildings in the case of an emergency. It's a big ask, obviously. They marked it as a tier 1. So
uh,
I'd
and
like to
plus
see that work if we can make it fit.
we're not really, we have to look at how we're distributing the amount of dollars for capital projects among each department, and I don't think they might be a little light.
Yeah, I was starting to add like libraries 230, police is 234, fleet I would have to add up. I was starting to do that. School,
That's a good
try
way
to,
at it. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good.
try to distribute. Obviously, like the DPW is a much bigger department than the library, right? So like, we can't look at it too even Stevens because there's just different needs.
Right.
I guess anything we've marked yellow, I guess. Can you scroll up, Joe, please? Keep on going right here. So
Excuse me, the elevator badge access, did we,
that's a security matter, I think, isn't it?
no,
well, we haven't decided. I mean, it's yellow still. I mean,
Right. So I'm suggesting that it be green.
so the elevator badge would only a few people would use the elevator as opposed to everyone using it right now.
right?
Is that
I was,
correct?
yeah, like I was sort of for this, but this system's been in place for 11 years. And it's not a ton of money. The school departments, but like they can't come up with 15 grand to change a system that's been in place for 11 years in their own school. Like if it's that much of a problem, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm a little on the
Yeah.
fence about that. It's small money compared to what we need to save, but
Is there any, I remember last year when the traffic light person came in for something on Salem Street, and the
Yep.
gentleman from FinCom suggested that he approached the town's emergency fund. Now, would this fall into the same category or not? I
that was
mean,
the traffic light at North and Prospect. I think that was probably a public safety thing of why
well,
that comment was made.
well, this is definitely public safety oriented.
I think it's kids not using the elevator when they're supposed to be using the stairs.
Yeah.
If
Yeah. I can see. Goodbye. I can see.
But I'm in favor of, I'm just wondering if we could, take it out of the capital budget and ask another source within the town to pick it up. You're wondering why the school department won't pick it up. Maybe they should.
It's not a tier. It's not a tier designated
think it was.
I think it was tier 3.
T3.
Yeah.
E3, oh,
If we cut the elevator badge access and the bottle filler stations at the 2 different requests of that, that's 40,000 between the 3 things. They're all kind of small. The bottle fillers are not necessary for the function or the services that the building provides, right? Like, but if the big stuff is gonna be too hard to knock down, I don't know about, then it's gonna have to be combining a bunch of the small stuff. But if you did those 3 things, that's 40,000, which is like a third of the way there.
Say it again, Sam.
The 2 bottle fillers, so at the 15 and the 10,
The Galvin and the senior
And-
center.
the Galvin and the
Senior
senior
center, yeah.
center. And then also the elevator badge access, that's 40,000 of our 127.
I think he's right.
I'd do this one too.
Boiler heat pump.
Which one? The drawings. Why you don't?
Well, so here's the thing. It's the kickstart to a capital project, but I think I could scrape together what I need to accomplish that and not need to use this. Thinking about it out loud. So I'll have no heartache there. I'll find a way.
Well, if we,
So that's not a physical thing. That's just planning, right? You pump drawings and plans.
engineering, yeah.
Right.
I mean, is that really a capital, like, no.
It is if it's related to the capital project.
But to put a line drawing together with a spec versus accomplishing something that's a physical asset, I feel like I could, with a little bit more time, I could figure out a way into that, I'm sure. Or at least get myself comfortable with bringing the vendors in and walking through it.
Well, if we,
Picking apart some of their scopes.
I mean, if you feel you can do it, we'll take the 15. Gets us to 55.
Shane,
Yeah.
cut.
Well,
and then what,
no. You're removing the. Okay.
and Sam's idea too, the
Yeah.
3,
Yeah.
Which was what? The elevators, right?
right,
And then was it this one, the bottle filler?
bottle filler. And also the one at the senior center, which is on another page.
Yeah.
So what's that?
This
What
one?
do you get for that total, Joe? I'm sorry, you're still doing it.
No, that's all right. So
224,966.
Man,
So that's 72,000 off.
Mhm.
That would be, well,
I don't know why this keeps jumping
that would be
down.
like almost 1/3 of the police. I don't want to bring it up. I think we should fully fund it, but I'm just looking at, there's not many other areas I feel that we
Well,
had to cut.
Let's kind of go through what I get. You want to go through
What about the fleet? Go back to DPW. What about 33 or one of the newer ones? What about 13 or 4? Like if we took one of those out,
Let's split the vans. You took the words out of my mouth. So replace the one that's dead.
which
And
is
then-
13. Is that
Yeah.
13? Which one's dead?
I think it's the newer one, I think. What did I say? You got me confused because we were talking about
So
it.
33 you said should say it's a van that you want to replace with the pickup.
Yeah, that's this one right here.
So you probably, the van, and then for the
This one's
one
just tape.
above that, you said it was a hand-me-down from the light department.
Yeah.
But does that necessarily, and then I don't know about the 2009 pickup, equipment 4.
That's just ancient. So if I take the van away, that takes you to, what was your goal again, Phil?
Bingo.
2153.
Ooh.
We're off with
No,
$6,000.
sorry, get rid of the tables.
Get rid of
We're
the
there.
tables.
I'm only kidding. Poor Dan. We should support the Civic Center. I'm only kidding. Frank Leone's gonna punch me through the screen. I'm only kidding. I think we should support the Civic Center with the 8,000.
Let's give them this number. Close
No,
enough.
I don't want to come in over. Let's come in at 2,152,999. Let's pull a Walmart.
Hey,
Yeah.
Phil,
Yeah.
um, just a recommendation, the windows, the basement at the Civic Center, if you played with, just knocked it down a little to give them something
You
to
do
make
the
your
worst
number work.
ones. Yeah. Like they
That-
can't
that-
all be.
That would
they
be
can't-
satisfactory.
I can't imagine they're all broken. They're probably all in rough shape. Is what
Well,
I
they
would
all need to be
imagine.
replaced eventually, but you can do it in phases.
If we knock that down to 20,000, that would give us 2.214. Right? Is that right? No.
2 point.
No.
Well, you
my
can knock
math's
it back
wrong.
up a little bit to get to your number.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Go to window grates. Knock it down seven grand.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So if you did that, so 23 for 16 windows, you might be able to find a welder to fix some of them.
Oh yeah.
Get the Voken. Get some of their
Yeah.
students in. They can weld too. Hey, look at that.
Hey.
Walmart special.
I rudely just pick up the phone when we're on this meeting. I would cut this one too. If we do more of the labor on this than not, we can make that work.
So you're cutting out the backhoe rebuild?
I'm just
Just-
knocking
yeah.
it down. I'm
Just
not
taking
cutting
it
it out.
down.
If you took down the backhoe rebuild, then we can put more money back into something else. Like that's. I don't want to. I want to come in at the number. Like that's.
You want to come in at the number.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think.
That's just
Yeah.
showing off.
I mean, well, there's nothing I can do about the $34 that were with the leases, but like
We can put a lid in
Anything,
the tables.
again, I know I might have asked this question year after year. How do they derive the number, the target that we are supposed to meet?
It's a good question. That's one I've asked. It's
Because-
a number. It's a number the town accountant and I think the administrator pull together from different departments' budgets. Like when you go if you attend town meeting and they go through the town budget department by department, departments will have individual capital budgets in there, and they congregate numbers. That's the best explanation that's been given to me. I think FinCom is involved in that. It's generally during, I think, the forecasting in the fall that this number comes to be. I've never been able, I don't think there's any set formula, like a percentage of the budget or a percentage of the department that this number. I think it's a shot in the dark, and
It certainly doesn't account for inflation.
it doesn't. There's a town nearby to us that has $0 for capital planning. So when I was complaining to that person about, oh, like 2 million every year, we're trying to get more, the comment was like, oh, well, you could have 0. So I think
Well,
we
then how do
take
they
it,
fund their capital expenditures?
if they
You
can,
don't.
it would be from free cash. If they get it, if they get 100,000, they get 100,000 to spend in the whole town. So I think we have to believe the number that FinCom and the administrator's office gives us is their best number, and they understand we're trying to get more. I would love to see this up a 215 number rather than 213. In all honesty, I'd really want to maximize something because this puts us how far off? 3817? No.
We'll put the backhoe,
13 plus 3, 6, about 15, 16,000 off that budget.
put another 15
I'd say
back
no.
on.
I would say
If you-
why don't we give the senior center some water bottle fillers? Put in 10 grand for the senior center or something. I feel, the senior citizen. It's a beautiful center and gets a lot of use, and let's let's give them some water, some bottle fillers or something. I think we could find some money to put in somewhere where it would be welcomed, even though maybe not the full ask, and get us close to our budget.
Well, I
Mm.
guess my,
Right
Joe,
now, we're under.
Right now
I
we're
think,
under.
right, we could do 7,500, right, for each of the water fillers. So 7,500 at the middle school, 7,500 at the senior center.
And it'll
Sure.
probably give you 2 water fillers for 7,500. Is that about right? Is it about 3 per?
I think so.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive.
So they each get 2, and
Would people be okay with that? Or Sam, what do you think? I missed your comment about the budget. I'm sorry. I'm gonna. What were you saying? We should come in at, or you want to
Well,
come in under?
I want to come in at the number.
yeah,
They give you a number, then I'm more apt to want to come in at it. And then if they say later, we messed up, it's too rich, then we cut further. But I'm not looking to make their job easier. I
Yeah,
mean, there was $8.5 million worth of asks. So
yeah.
I think it's incumbent upon us to also support
yeah.
um those requests.
Com-
But as
100%.
far as where the numbers get derived from, it's it I was just taking a financial forecasting class for the town I work in. Um I'm sure a huge part of it is you start with revenue and what we have for 2.5 capacity. And I don't want to sound like the Ways and Means report at the beginning of every Springtown meeting. But you got to look at the growth of the operating budget and how fast that's growing relative to what 2.5 allows for, especially with new growth projections wherever they're at. And then everything else that you're still paying for, you got to find either a separate funding source, a separate revenue, or it's still going to fit underneath that if we're going to pay it with the tax levy. So I'm sure it's a lot of moving parts and it's hard to pin down. But I think that's generally where it's at. And I'm sure it's tight because, I think every town basically tells every department for their operating. Level fund your service, keep expense growth to 0, and just mostly stick to your contractual obligations that need to be increased.
Right.
Like there's not a lot of growth potential for a lot of stuff.
So it's simple. We just put up Shane's idea, the water
Okay.
bottle fillers in
You
those
want to
two
go back to
places.
Galvin and senior
Yep.
center, Joe? Throw
That
in
brings it-
maybe 7,500, 7 in each. I don't
Yeah.
know what the number is offhand.
I think that brings it to where we want to be.
And then senior center. Okay, let's see the magic number. Hey, it is the magic number. I think that's a good number.
Yep.
What a procedural question here. If the town council or anyone doesn't like our number, do we go back to the drawing board, or do they determine what they think they should cut?
We're charged with taking a vote on this, so we present our final vote to town council. The only time in my tenure where we had to change that was COVID, where after we already voted, we were then approached by the town to cut our list in half to 1 million because of funding. And so at that point, we had to meet at some point during the summer or late spring to cut it to 1 million, and then that was presented. But
So
we take the final vote. We take the final vote and then present our final vote to both the town council and FinCom. And then at Springtown meeting for the town vote. What I would say is I would love to get information on the 50 grand and ADA. If for some reason that's not an absolute need, I would love to see that 50 go towards to one of these other projects. And with that said, you know, if we're close, I think if we can get this sheet sent back out to us, we can take a look at it. We could have a quick meeting Thursday, and if there's not much to talk about, we don't have to have a long protracted meeting. Mondays is when I already invited FinCom, so I with respect their schedules, wouldn't want to try to push them to come Thursday. So if we feel we don't need the meeting Thursday, we could cancel it and just have our next meeting on Monday as well. I want to be respectful of people's life outside of this. So if we feel we're in a good place, we can cancel the meeting Thursday and just meet again on Monday for our final meeting, and then we would take our final vote. But I don't want to rush it if we want to absorb it. And then Joe Conway, do you know if there's a requirement to cancel a meeting? I know there's a requirement to post a meeting has to be 48 or 3 business days. But if we wanted to cancel a meeting, you don't think there's any sort of rule about that, is there?
No,
Yeah,
not that I've ever run
it's
into.
scheduling one that they have the hard fast rule to make sure it gets posted.
Mhm.
So,
Right, so it has to be the posting requirement, but if you have to
Yeah.
cancel, you have to cancel. I mean,
so what do people think about meeting Thursday? Let's go around room here. Sam, what do you think?
I don't know if much is going to change either in my mind or any substantial change that Joe's going to hear about between now and Thursday
Okay.
that would necessitate it.
Shane?
Yeah, I say I completely agree. We obviously we'll get this updated list. We can all look over it. We cannot, just so I'm clear, we can't send emails outside of the meeting, right, to the whole group.
You can send me an email,
Okay.
but we cannot discuss as a group any of these any of this, correct?
Okay. So yeah, I would say we'll get the updated Excel sheet sent out. I don't think we need to meet Thursday, and then if there are any changes, we can be ready to discuss it Monday, maybe for 15-20 minutes, and then kind of do the vote. But I don't think we meet Thursday.
Right. What about you, Frank?
I'm looking at the ADA expenditure of 50,000 and Joe's. I think, Joe, you would have enough time to get that information and
I'll stay here and I'll do it tonight. So you'll have that update. I had asked during the meeting for any background on the
so I
seniors.
don't think there'd be much debate on that. Well, there could be on the ADA on Monday.
We could talk at Monday because Monday's going to be. We're going to need to go through the whole. We're going to need to go through the list of things we've kept in because for FinCom, for people who are attending, answer any questions. But we can start the meeting, minutes, and then start the meeting talking about the ADA line item specifically, and then we can go into the full review.
Okay, if that's the case, I'm comfortable with canceling Thursday's meeting.
Tracy.
Same. I'm comfortable canceling Thursday's meeting and going through it on Monday. Is it in person or on Zoom again?
I'm waiting to hear back from Sherry if there's a room available. So I'm going to email her in the morning and I'll let you guys know as soon as possible. And Dan, for Thursday?
Yes, cancel.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. Okay. I think that makes sense. So we'll cancel Thursday. We'll plan to meet on Monday. And I'll let you know if it's in person or going to be Zoom. And Joe, let us know ADA, send us the updated list, and then we'll
If
take it from
anything
there.
changes between now and then, Phil, I'll just send it to you live as it hits my desk.
Oh, you know what's going to change is Senior Center was going to present an additional request for a handicap vehicle, right? Didn't they come late, like 11th hour tonight? I'm just remembering this.
Yeah, I emailed her while we were starting the meeting, just said, give me what you have.
Okay.
So,
So we're not going to meet Thursday. So that would throw off our number depending on what she's asking. So I guess I know so if we're not meeting Thursday, if you could ask her to send her request in writing.
Sure.
And I'll forward it to the committee. And that would be something else we'd have to discuss Monday. But being how tight we are, I don't know how we would fit that in, or depending on the need. So, okay.
Okay.
If there's nothing else, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Dan, second. Okay. Thanks, everyone. All in favor, press leave meeting. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks. Good job tonight. That was tough
Thank
work.
you.
That was good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.